Today we're going to be looking at a common question, and that's, I've got no audio in Cubase, why? So let's go straight to Studio, and we go to Studio Setup. And here you'll see a correctly configured system, and we've got the ASIO Hammerfall, which is the ARMY driver connected. But you might be seeing no driver in this ASIO panel, and you'll see the input and output latency are 0. And if we just go to Studio and then Audio Connections, you'll also see another sign that you've not got correct driver. Audio device is not connected, and if you click on it, there's no options, and it's saying missing ports. So close that, go back to Studio and Studio Setup. You might also be seeing what's called generic low latency ASIO driver. This is very high latency, so input and output is at 20 milliseconds. This isn't the correct driver for your manufacturer. Not all the ports are visible. It's running at much higher latency. And if we go to the control panel, you'll see this is just a generic screen. This isn't your manufacturer's control panel. You don't have full control over your audio interface. So again, drop down. We'll go for ASIO Hammerfall because we've got a ARMY Hammerfall card. Now you might have a Focusrite ASIO, Focusrite USB ASIO, Apollo USB, Apollo Thunderbolt ASIO, but the common thing will be it will say the manufacturer or the device name and then ASIO after it. And now you can see all our inputs were showing there. So if we go back to Studio and Audio Connections, inputs and outputs, it's automatically assigned to the driver and the ports are showing. But we want to have a different setup for our inputs because we're recording mono sources. So we'll change that all to 26 mono, but we don't use the SPDIF on this setup, so we'll remove those. And so to remove, you just right click and then remove. So any channels you're not going to be using, you can do that just so it doesn't confuse things. Now, if you've always got a particular device connected, say a certain microphone, in this case an SE Gemini, to input 1 or any of the inputs, you can just double click on where it says mono 1, mono 2, and rename it, press enter. If you right click on that, you'll see that's set as the default, and you can set any of those ports as the default. We'll save this preset, just something that makes sense in the future when we come back to it. So this is an ARMY card with ADAT, so we'll call it the ARMY input ADAT. Now for the outputs, we do want stereo outputs because we're sending it to speakers and say outboard compressors. Again, we're not going to be using the SPDIF in this setup, so we'll just right click and delete those. Now say we've always got our main speakers connected, we could just double click on that, change it to main outs. Again, save this preset to something that's memorable and makes sense for your setup. So inputs, outputs, all set up, close that down. Now you should have audio.